Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sport. And the news we've been waiting for all week has officially been confirmed. Eben Etzebeth has officially been handed a 12-week ban after the eye-gouging incident against Alex Mann from the weekend against Wales. It was actually an 18-week ban that has been reduced to 12 weeks due to mitigating circumstances such as Eben Etzebeth's clean record, as well as his admitting guilt and his behavior throughout the hearing, which also, by the way, included a testimonial coming from Ardie Savea in a bit of an interesting twist. But they have basically deemed that it was intentional, that it warranted a midweek entry point, which starts at 18 weeks, and then they have reduced it down to 12 weeks, which means that he will not miss a single Springbok game, at least from this ban, next year. However, he will not be available for the Sharks for basically December, January, February. Will only make a return to rugby in March, in a massive blow for a Sharks side, which is really, really struggling. And Sharks coach, or rather director of rugby, Neil Powell, was actually in the hearing, hoping to try and help Eben Etzebeth get that ban down and get him back and available for the Sharks. But he will still be available for the Springbok game come in beginning of the season next year. Before we get into the sanction, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Right, so I'm just going to go through basically kind of the basics, and then we'll kind of sort of dig into the hearing as well. So this is basically the summary. So they basically did find that there was intentional rather than reckless. Now, we've been going through that throughout the week and kind of been talking about exactly what this decision was. So in terms of the chair of the panel, it was Christopher Quinlan, who is the judicial panel chair of World Rugby Disciplinary Committee, and he was joined by Becky Essex, who is a former international player for England, and Leon Lloyd, also a former international player from England. In terms of the player, was there Eben Etzebeth was part of that, as well as SA Rugby, and he was represented by advocate Adrian Matsinga. There was also a couple of representatives from Saru, Tatu Vandile, and Ismail Dolly, both from my players. Neil Powell, director of rugby at Sharks, and a couple of other attendees as well. Basically, in terms of some of the documents that were submitted, they submitted a couple of other different statements from the medical doctor, as well as the manager from Wales, as well as the statement from Alex Mann, as well as obviously Eben Etzebeth statements. They had reduced a couple of other similar incidences, as well as some camera angles, and as well as, very interestingly, a statement from Ardie Savea, which we'll get into in a bit. We don't actually have the statement, but basically they said in the final decision is that they do find it to be reckless. So in terms of the sanctioning process, we'll actually go straight over here. So this is basically where they got to it. So once they sort of had the decision, and they basically, this is kind of you can go see it on the website itself, and it kind of goes through all the different sort of parts of it, and kind of goes through quite a lot of different findings, stuff like that. Over here, they said that we also gave appropriate weight to the character testimonial from Ardie Savea, which would have been a good one, I imagine, because they are very good friends. And they go through all the different findings, and then they go to the sanctioning process. And basically, they say they've so first things first is it decided that it was intentional rather than reckless, and the reasons were set out above. And they said that there was a degree of provocation, so he was provoked. Whatever happened on the floor, the player said he believed it was all dying down before W7 poked him in the face. However, Eben Etzebeth, in a statement, denies an eye gouge and says he never felt a hand or a finger in his eye. So the whole week when we were talking about a Italian eye gouge, Eben's actually denied that it was the case. He has said that there wasn't an eye gouge there. Basically, they then said that the player did not respond or react to that. He reacted only when W7, Wales 7, pulled him down violently. And they then said this is how the player retaliated. And in terms of self-defense, they said he was not defending himself in any real sense, but reacting to the shirt pulling in the context of what had happened before. Basically, also a bigger thing. So, again, we go back to this over here. There was no injury, nor was the player vulnerable because you're standing upright. So if you go over there, that goes into the fact that there was no real sort of effect on the match or the likes of that. And then they go into it. So they said the entry point is mid-range over there. They basically said that mid-range is 18 weeks. And this was some of the off-field mitigations. So the player's disciplinary record, for all that everybody calls it, Eben Etzebeth a dirty player. He's got a fantastic disciplinary record. and very few cards, the likes of that. So that was mitigation. He did admit to foul play. The only thing, the unchanged evidence was that he has never received a red card. He was cited in 2012 and received a 2-match ban, but that is obviously 13 years ago. Youth and experience obviously didn't play a part because he is very experienced. His conduct prior to the hearing, they said he behaved exactly as they would expect him to do. There was remorse, there was an apology as well. As a result, they come to 6 weeks over there, and that is basically kind of that. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting sanction. It's going to be quite interesting to see the reaction. I mean, I said 12 weeks. I said 12 weeks initially when I saw it. I thought that I don't know why 12 weeks seemed to be the number, but I said 3 months seemed to be kind of where we were at. I think 18 weeks is about fair. I think it was a horrible incident. There's no doubt that there was provocation. We spoke about that there was obviously an incident in terms of them pushing and shoving each other, but nothing that basically, warranted the final reaction. And as a result, he has gotten 18 weeks, which is a very long ban. I mean, that's 4.5 months. That would have put him in basically back in mid-May. The fact that this is now going to be down to 12 weeks really suits him, actually. If we're going to be perfectly honest, I think this could be one of the best things that's happened to him from a being able to go and reset point of view. Obviously, this goes against his disciplinary record, and it's not a good record to have, not a good thing to have against his name. But I think that not good for the Sharks. From a Springbok point of view, this actually might be a bit of a good thing. But that's basically the decision. So you can see over there, it's intentional. Mid-range was 12 weeks. They applied the full mitigation because there was a guilty plea, a good record, remorse and apology, as well as good conduct. There was no aggravation. So it's not, in fact, he's a repeat offender. There was no need for a deterrent, and there were no other different factors as well. In terms of the games that he will miss, they are as follows. His sanction concludes on the 28th of March, 2026. His sanction commences from last weekend. So he will miss the 7th of December the 2 Sharks Game Champions Cup, then the URC games versus Bulls and Lions, then the 2 Champions Cups games against Sale Sharks and Cleburne, then URC games against Stormers, Lions, Bulls, Munster, Cardiff. And basically back in April. I don't know if I said February, but yeah, basically so back in April. So he's going to be gone for a while, obviously, because there are a couple of breaks there because of the Six Nations. That's why this has obviously been extended, because you can see there 31st Jan and 21st of Feb, because there are no games. So it's 12 matches effectively versus 12 weeks. Because you can't serve a week if you're not scheduled to have played. And unfortunately, we're not like the New Zealand sides who often used to go and get their players to go and play club games in the likes of that to try and do that. So it's a big punishment. It's not a Mickey Mouse ban. The fact is he's only back in April, so it's not a Mickey Mouse ban by any means. I think that it is. I wouldn't say he's got off lightly. It could have been worse, and it could have been worse. But it's not a slap on the wrist. I think you look at, for example, the James Ryan red card. That's a slap on the wrist. 3 weeks, I think down to 2 weeks for basically a headbutt of Malcolm Marx's head, versus this where you've gotten 12 weeks. And it's gonna be interesting to see what the reaction is. Again, I think it could be potentially be a good thing. I think he needs to go away. I don't think he had his best Springbok season. He needs to get away. Hopefully for December, he goes and puts himself on a beach somewhere, has a bit of introspection about exactly where he is in his career, what he wants out of his career, what he wants to do with the last couple of years. And then hopefully when we come back in April, we're going to see an Eben Etzebeth who is desperate to get back to being one of the best players in the world. So what are your thoughts on the sanction? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.